Hello all, welcome to AWS Tutorials. My name is Kastro Kiran. In the last video, we have understood the concept of security. In this video, we are going to work with the practical scenarios of how S3 security will help us to protect the buckets and also the objects that are available in the S3 service. Let us have a quick recap of what we have discussed in the last video. We have known that there are two types of security methods that are available. The first one is known as encryption at rest, and the second one is known as access permissions. In encryption at rest, we have two subcategories. The first one is known as server-side encryption, and the second one is known as client-side encryption. Again, in the server-side encryption, we have three more categories. The first one is known as SSE-S3, which is the default encryption. And the second one is known as SSE-KMS, which is Key Management Service or Key Management System. And the third one is known as SSE-CMK, that is Customer Managed Key. So these are the four types of encryptions that we have under encryption at rest category. Now coming to the access permissions are divided into three categories. The first one is known as a bucket policy. The second one is known as ACL, which is also known as access control list. Again, ACL has been divided into two categories. The first one is known as ACLs at bucket level and ACLs at object level. And the third one under access permission is known as pre-signed URLs. So these are the total security methods or the security features that are available in order to protect an object or a bucket that is available in S3 service. In this video, we are going to majorly focus on the access permissions category, where we are going to look at the bucket policy, ACLs, and also the pre-signed URLs. Along with that, we have already discussed that by default, whenever we create an S3 bucket, there is a default encryption that will be available, which is known as SSE-S3. So this also we are going to focus on in this particular video. So what we are going to do in the AWS console is, first we are going to create a bucket and we are going to upload multiple objects into the bucket. And then what we will do is we will try to access the object from the browser, and also we will try to enable the ACL and disable the ACL. We will observe what kind of default encryption will be coming along with working with ACLs part. After working with ACLs, we are also going to work with the bucket policy and how bucket policy has to be created and how this policy is going to help us in order to protect the bucket. And then we'll also be looking towards how the pre-signed URLs will work, and we'll also see the different aspects of the pre-signed URLs as well. These are the things that we are going to see in the AWS console. Let's go to the AWS console and let's work with all of these concepts. So here I am in the AWS console, especially the S3 service. So here you can see there is an option to create a bucket. Just click on create bucket so that we are going to create a bucket. We have already seen how to create a bucket and what are the things that we need to remember while creating a bucket. So the first thing is we need to select the region where we want to create the bucket. So here I'm selecting the Mumbai region. If you want, you can select any other regions, whatever is convenient for you. And the bucket name must be globally unique. So since we are doing the work with respect to the S3 security feature, what I'm giving the bucket name as security-bucket-Kastro. You can give any bucket name. There is no restriction with respect to the bucket name. And then what we are going to do is we are not going to work with the ACLs part. So by default, ACLs will be disabled. Let the ACL be disabled. After some time, I'll be showing you how to enable the ACL while working with the public object URL. And block all public access also, I'm not going to change. Let it be the default position only. And versioning, we are not going to work with that because we have already seen how to work with the versioning concept, all these things. If you want, you can refer the video that is available in the playlist, which is especially on versioning concept. With these details, we are going to create a bucket. But before clicking on create bucket, I was telling you by default, there will be an encryption. What is that encryption? That's called as SSE-S3. By default, for any bucket that you are going to create in the S3 service, this will be the default encryption, which is SSE-S3. Related to SSE KMS and DSSE KMS, we are going to work in the upcoming videos. But for time being, let us focus on SSE-S3, which is the default encryption. And we know that in SSE-S3, we don't have any kinds of permissions to create the key, to delete the key, or to manage the key. Everything will be taken care by the AWS itself. So here, this SSE-S3, we don't have to majorly work with any of the features because AWS is going to take care of all the aspects that comes with the encryption part, especially the SSE-S3. And now let us click on create bucket. And if you have given the unique bucket name, the bucket will get created. And here you can see the bucket has got created with this name. In which region the bucket has got created? In the Mumbai region. And here you can also see the buckets and objects not public because we have not enabled the ACL, and block all public access option also we have turned on. So that's the reason why we are seeing bucket and objects not public. Now what we will do is let us upload an object into this S3 bucket. So in order to upload an object into the S3 bucket, first go inside the bucket and then you can see an option called upload here. So click on upload and then select the file, whatever you want to add. So click on add files if you want to add an individual object. So I'm selecting a file that is an object here and then just click on upload here. Once you click on upload, the object will get uploaded into the S3 bucket. Now we know that for every object that we are uploading into the S3 bucket, we will have an URL that's called as object URL. So how will you access the object outside of the AWS cloud? In order to access the object outside of the AWS cloud, we need to have the object URL. So how to get this object URL? So just click on the object, whatever you want to access outside of the AWS cloud. So here I'm clicking on the object and here you can see there is an object URL. So copy this object URL, go to the browser and paste that object URL. And we know that when I click enter, we will not be able to access the object. Why? Because we have not done any kinds of settings in order to access the object outside the AWS cloud. But here you can access the object by being inside the AWS cloud itself. How will you access? Just go into the bucket and then select the object. And here you can see an option called open. Just click on open and you will be able to see the object. But this is not our intention. Our intention is I want to access the object by using object URL outside of the AWS cloud. So this one I'm currently accessing by being inside the AWS cloud. But whereas when I try to access the object by using object URL, I am unable to access. You can see access denied. Now let us try to access the object by being outside of the AWS cloud. So how to do that? For that, we need to enable three options. What is the first option? The first option is we have to enable the ACLs. So currently for the bucket, whatever we have created, the ACLs are disabled. So how to enable the ACLs for a bucket? So in order to enable the ACLs for the bucket, just go into the permissions and here you can see the block all public access settings, which is turned on. We are going to work with this in some time. And then here you can see an option called ACL, that is access control list. So in order to enable the ACL's permission, here you can see an option called bucket owner enforced. So click on this option and here you can see by default the ACLs are disabled. So let us explicitly enable the ACLs part here. So click on enable ACL and then acknowledge it and then click on save changes. So this is the first option that we need to work with in order to make an object public. So let me go to the object URL and let me reload it. And if I reload, I should not be able to see the object. What is the reason? The reason is in order to access the object outside of the AWS cloud, we need to enable three options. The first option is we have to enable the ACL, which we have done just now. Now, what is the second option? The second option is we have to turn off the block all public access settings. Currently, what is the state of block all public access? It is turned on. So we have to turn off this one. That's the second option. So how to turn off the block all public access? You can see an option called edit here. So click on edit and then uncheck this box so that the block all public access will be turned off. So it is asking me to confirm that. So let us type confirm here and then click on confirm. So that what is going to happen is the block all public access option is off now. So now if you go to the browser and if you reload the page, you will still be not able to access the object. Why? Because so far we have enabled only two options. What are they? The first one is we have enabled the ACL and the second one is we have turned off the block all public access. Now the next thing that we have to do is whatever the object that you want to access outside of the AWS cloud, select that object and here you can see an option called actions. So click on actions and if you scroll down to the bottom, there is an option called make public using ACL. So click on this one, which is called as make public using ACL. And then you can see this object we are trying to access from the outside of AWS console. And then click on make public. Once all these three options are enabled, then only you will be successfully able to see the object outside of the AWS cloud. Now, if you reload the page, you are able to see the page or you are able to see the object that I have uploaded into the S3 bucket. So how I am accessing the object outside of the AWS cloud, I am enabling three options. What are they? The first one is I have enabled the ACL. The second option is I have turned off the block all public access option. And the third one is I have enabled make public using ACL. This is how you can work with the ACL's part. So this ACL, you can work either with respect to the bucket level or with respect to the object level. So currently I have worked with ACL with respect to the object level. A similar trend you can also follow by working with object level as well as the bucket level as well, right? So now you can see we have the object. If you share the object URL, so you open the object, you have the object URL, copy this object URL and you share it to anyone, whoever is not having an AWS account or whoever is having an AWS account. So just to share this object URL, and here you can see if I paste the object URL and once I click enter, I will be able to see the object. That means the object is publicly accessible now. Okay, the object is publicly accessible now. So that's how we can work with the ACL's part. Okay, that's how we can work with the ACL's part. And the next option that we are going to work with is known as bucket policy. So how will we create a bucket policy? So in order to access or whatever the objects that you are going to upload into the S3 bucket, for this bucket, if you want to give the public access, what we are going to do is we need to create a bucket policy. Okay, in order to secure the objects that are available in an S3 bucket, we need to create the bucket policy and then we are going to access the objects that are available in the S3 bucket. So currently we have not created any kinds of bucket policy. So first let us see how to create a bucket policy. So in order to create a bucket policy, first open the bucket or click onto the bucket. You can see an option called permissions. So click on permissions and here if you scroll down, you can see an option called bucket policy. You can see the bucket policy option here. Now this bucket policy is usually written in the format of JSON format. Now I'll explain you what exactly is JSON format and how does the JSON format appears in the real-time scenarios. Now, before talking about the JSON format, if you want to create a bucket policy, you can create the bucket policy by clicking on edit option. Currently, you can see there is no policy to display. So what we are going to do is we are going to create the bucket policy. So in order to create the bucket policy, you can see an option called edit here. Click on edit and here you can see there are two options that are coming down. One is policy examples and the second one is policy generator. If you want to see the different examples of bucket policies, you can click on policy examples and here you will be able to see the different bucket policies for various options. You can see the bucket policies examples, and these are all there in the format of JSON format. So this is the bucket policy example. Now, for any bucket policy, there are three major important things. The first one is known as version, the second one is known as ID, and the third one is known as a statement. So these are the three major things that will be available in any bucket policy. The first one is version, the second one is ID, and the third one is known as statement. Now, for any bucket policy, it is important to give the version. Okay, it is important to give the version. And here, bucket policy will always start with the JSON format, and it will always end with the JSON format. These flower brackets are called as JSON formats. Okay, the bucket policy always starts with a curly brackets and they always ends with the curly brackets. So technically, we should not call them as curly brackets. They are called as JSON format. And inside the flower brackets, we have three options. The first one is version, the second one is ID, and the third one is statement. Now, inside the statement, it always starts with the array format, and it also always ends with the array format. That's called as a square brackets. Now, inside the array format, again, we will have the flower brackets, and it will also end with the flower brackets. Now, inside the statement, we have three important things again. The first one is known as a principle, the second one is known as effect, and the third one is known as action. Now, based on the action, the resource will come into picture. Okay, based on action, the resource will come into picture. Now, let us understand what is this principle, effect, action, and resource. Let us talk about the effect first. The effect consists of two options. The first option is known as allow, and the second option is known as deny. Suppose if you want to allow outsiders to access your S3 bucket, you are going to give the option as allow. If you don't want to allow any third-party persons to access your S3 bucket or the objects that are there in the S3 bucket, you will give the option as deny. That's called as effect, which is consisting of two options, either allow or deny. If you give allow, the third-party persons will be able to access the object in the S3 bucket. If you give deny, nobody can access the objects in the S3 bucket except the root user. That means except you, nobody can access. And the second option is known as action. Now, what kind of action the third party person wants to do? So suppose, let's say, if you want to upload an object, or if you want to download the object, if you want to create a bucket, if you want to delete a bucket, if you want to enable the versioning, if you want to enable the SSE KMS, these are all called as actions. So here in the actions category, we can define what kind of action we can perform. Okay, whatever the permissions that you give here. Currently, you can see there is an action that is available, which is called as S3 put object. Put object means upload the object into the S3 bucket. That's called as put object. So what he can do now, only he can upload the object into the S3 bucket. Nothing else he will be able to do. That's called as action. And the next one is known as a principle. Principle basically consists of what kind of permission or to which account we are trying to give the permission. That we are going to specify in the principle category. Suppose here, instead of star, if you give the account ID, suppose for any AWS account, we know that we have an AWS account ID. If you provide the account ID, only the person who is accessing the bucket with that account ID, they will be able to access the bucket and the object. If you give star, okay, if you give star, what does it indicate is anybody can access the object that is available in a specific bucket. That's what a star indicates. In the place of star, we can also give the account ID of AWS, where only that particular AWS account ID will be able to access. That's the principal category. And the next one, which is the last one, is known as resource. Resource means, suppose, let's say, I want to upload an object into the S3 bucket, but for into which S3 bucket I want to upload the object. That we are going to specify as a resource. So usually in the resource category, we are going to provide the ARN of the bucket or ARN of the object. What is ARN? ARN is nothing but Amazon resource name. So we'll be practically seeing all these things and how to get the ARN for the bucket and the object also I'll be showing you in some time. But this is how the JSON format will be available. So it always starts with the JSON format and it always ends with the JSON format. Inside the JSON format, three important things are there. The first one is version, the second one is ID, and the third one is statement. Statement again always starts with the array format, which is the square bracket, and it also ends with the square bracket, that is an array format. And inside the statement, there are three important things. The first one is principal, second one is effect, and the third one is action. Based upon the action that you are giving, the resource option will be available. Okay, SID is not so important. You don't need to bother about this one. SID is nothing but SID is nothing but statement ID. S represents a statement ID, statement ID. Now what we are going to do is let us create the bucket policy. Okay, let us create our own bucket policy. We are not going to use the example ones. In real time, we need to create our own bucket policies. So let's see how we can create the bucket policy. So in order to create the bucket policy, you can see this option called policy generator. You click on policy generator and a new tab will open where you have to select multiple options in order to create the bucket policy. So here, the first step is we need to select the policy type. So what kind of policy we are selecting or we are creating? We are creating bucket policy for which service? For S3 service. So select S3 bucket policy. And then we need to add the statements. So in the statements, we were telling, if you observe this one, in the statement, what are the three important things? Principle, effect, action. So let us select that. You can see effect is there, principle is there, and action is there. And based on the action that you are giving, you can get the ARN, that is Amazon resource name. So what is our effect? Our effect is I want you to get allowed into the S3 bucket. I want to give the allow permission. So I'm going to select the allow permission. And here principle. So what we are going to give in the principal category. So here in the principal category, you can see in the example, if you give star, what does it mean? It means anybody can access the S3 bucket. Okay, if you give star, anybody can access the S3 bucket. That's basically the principle. So now, before giving the principle, you can see what kind of actions he wants to perform. Okay, you can see what kind of actions he wants to perform. So you can select, click on this drop down, and there are multiple options that are available. So based on the option, you can give whatever options that you are looking to give the permissions to the third party persons. So that's completely, actions is completely upon the user requirement. Suppose let's say I'll give the option as get object. Okay, get object. So get object is nothing but download the object. So you can see this option, get object option. You can see get object. If you want to give another options like put object also, you can also give the put object option as well. You can see the option, if you scroll down to the bottom, there is an option called put object. So like this, you can give whatever permissions that we want. Suppose let's say if you want to give the permission of create bucket, you can also give this permission, create bucket. So he can create the third party person can create the bucket also. So these three options I am selecting. Now, currently, you can see it is asking me to provide the ARN. Okay, it is asking me to provide the ARN. So what kind of ARN we are going to provide? We are going to provide the ARN of the object. So currently, what I'll do is I will not give this option of create bucket, and I will also not give the option of put object. Only get object option I'll be giving. So just to show you how the ARN will work. So I'm giving the put object option, that's done. Now here we need to provide the ARN of the resource. Now what is the ARN of the resource? Whichever object that you want to give the permission, that object ARN we are going to provide. Okay, that object ARN we are going to provide. So how to get the ARN of the bucket or how to get the ARN of the object? You can get both the things. So currently, if you come to the S3 console, you can see I'm currently there in the bucket policy creation. So here you can see the option of bucket ARN. So copy this bucket ARN and then paste the bucket ARN here. Okay, paste the bucket ARN here. And then after pasting the bucket ARN, at the end, just give slash star. Okay, just give slash star. What does slash star represents? Whatever objects that are available in this bucket. Okay, whatever objects that are available in this bucket, I am giving the permissions to access all those objects. That's what a star represents. If you don't give star, what will happen is he can only see the bucket, but he will not be able to see the objects that are available in the bucket. Now, once you provide all these options, we need to provide the principal. What does principal means? Here in the principal, you can provide either account ID or you can simply give star. So if you give star, any person from the AWS cloud can access the object, provided only when you do certain kind of actions. Now here, in the place of star, you can also give the ID as well, the account ID as well. If you keep the cursor on the principal, you can see the command that is showing down or the message that is showing down. Person who receives the permission in this statement, for example, IAM user, you need to provide the account number. Okay, you need to provide the account number. That is what the account number is also showing there. So currently, I'm not going to give the permission for any other AWS accounts. So what I'll do is I'll just give star here. And once you give the star, okay, once you give the star, you can click on add statements. Suppose, let's say, if you want to add any other conditions, currently what condition I have added? Only one condition or one access. If you want to add more permissions also, you can add it by clicking on add conditions, and you can add the conditions whatever you want. So that's how you can add the permissions according to your requirement. So currently I'm going to give only one action permission and then click on add statement. Once you click on add statement, you can see the summary of your selection. Principal, I have given it as star. Effect, given it as allow. What action I am giving? Only get object action. In which bucket this object is available? In this bucket. Okay, that's what I have given. And then click on generate policy. Once you click on generate policy, you can see the bucket policy got created automatically. So copy this bucket policy, go to the S3 bucket and paste it here. Okay, and paste it here. Once you paste the bucket policy, if there are any errors, it will show you at the end. If there are any errors, it will show you at the end. If there are any warnings also, it will show you at the end. And suggestions and security also, it will show. If there are any errors, you must have to verify those errors and correct those errors. If there are no errors that is showing down, you don't have to bother, and then click on save changes. So with this, what we have done is we have added the bucket policy. So how to add the bucket policy? Just go inside the bucket, go to permissions. If you scroll down, you can see bucket policy, click on edit, and then add the policy generator, click on policy generator, and then select the options, whatever you want. So currently I'm not going to do any changes, just click on save changes. And here you can see the bucket policy has got added. Okay, the bucket policy has got added automatically. Automatically in the sense I have added it explicitly, and you can see that bucket policy. Okay, since we have added the bucket policy, and what is the principal I have given? I have given the principal as star. So since I have given the principal as star, anybody can access this S3 bucket and the objects that are available in the S3 bucket. Okay, anybody can access the bucket that is here and the objects that are available in the S3 bucket. That is what slash star means. Okay, right. So now if you go to the S3 bucket, okay, if you go to the S3 bucket, and if I reload the page, okay, if I reload the page, you can see an option that's known as publicly accessible. Okay, you can see an option called publicly accessible. Now, can you see this option called public here for the bucket? Earlier, this was not the option, but now the option has got changed because in the bucket policy, we have given slash star. That means anybody can access. Okay, anybody can access which bucket? Only this bucket. If you have any other buckets in the S3 service, they will not be able to access any buckets other than this bucket. Right. Now, if you click on this bucket, you will see an option called publicly accessible. Can you see this option, the red color tag, which is showing publicly accessible? That means whatever objects that you are going to upload into the S3 bucket, all those objects are publicly accessible. Okay, all those objects are publicly accessible. So here what I am doing by using bucket policy, I am giving the permissions of whatever objects that I am going to upload into this specific S3 bucket. All those objects are publicly accessible. Okay, all those objects are publicly accessible. So that's how you can work with the bucket. Now if you select the object and then if you copy the object URL and if you paste it in the new tab, the object will be available. Okay, the object will be publicly accessible. You don't need to enable ACLs, you don't need to enable the block all public access, you don't need to enable any of the permissions. Directly if you add the bucket policy, the whatever objects that you are going to upload into this specific S3 bucket, just to share the object URL and they will be able to access the objects. So that's how you can work with the bucket policy. Now let's say I want to remove the bucket policy. Okay, I want to remove the bucket policy. So in order to remove the bucket policy, just go to the bucket and then go to the permissions. In the permissions, you can see this option called bucket policy. And here you can see an option called delete. So click on delete and then confirm deletion, delete, and then click on delete so that the bucket policy will get deleted. Now, since the bucket policy is deleted, are we able to access this object? Technically, we should not be able to access this object. Now, once I reload this page, okay, once I reload this page, I will see access denied. Let us verify that. I'm just reloading it. It will take some time to replicate the changes, but after some time, you will be able to see the access denied. And also, there will be one more change that will be coming into the bucket. That change is currently we have publicly accessible tag. Now, if I reload it, what will happen is that publicly accessible tag will not be shown. Let us verify that. Now, can you see the publicly accessible tag is not available here? Okay, the publicly accessible tag is not available. Why? Because we have removed the bucket policy. Even if you go to the bucket also, you can see earlier objects are public. It was showing. Now what it is showing, objects can be public. Okay, objects can be public. Why this option is showing? Because for the bucket, whatever the object that we have uploaded, we have given the ACL's permission. So since we have given ACL's permission, whatever the object that we have given the ACL permission, only that object can be public. The remaining objects cannot be public. Now suppose let's say I will go into the bucket and I will upload one more object into the bucket. Okay, I'll upload one more object into the bucket. Now here, let us click on add files and let us add one more file. Let's say that select the object and then click on upload. Now what will happen? Whatever the object that we are uploading now, that object is not publicly accessible. Let us verify that. So select the object and then copy the object URL and then paste it in the new tab. Click enter. Now here you can see the access denied option is coming. But for this one, if you reload, keep on reloading, since we have enabled all the three ACLs, that is ACL and then block all public access option and make public using ACL, since we have done all those three settings, I am still able to see this. But for this object that I have uploaded just now, I have not done any changes. So that's why it is showing access denied. So that's how you can work with the bucket policy. Okay, that's how we can work with the bucket policy. And the next and last one is known as the pre-signed URLs. So how to work with pre-signed URLs? Suppose let's say that I want to give the permission to access this object only for a specific period of time. Okay, only for a specific period of time, I want the others to access this object. So that case, we are going to use the pre-signed URL. So what is the use case of pre-signed URL? If you want others to access a specific object for a specific period of time, then we are going to work with pre-signed URL. We are not going to share the object URL, we will share the pre-signed URL. So let us see how to get the pre-signed URL and how to enable the pre-signed URL. So here, select this object, whatever you want to give the pre-signed URL option. So select the object and then go to actions. In the actions, you can see an option called share with a pre-signed URL. Okay, share with a pre-signed URL. So select that option and then for how many minutes you want to give the permission, or for how many arts you want to give the permission. You can just enter the number of arts here so that up to those many arts. Suppose let's say I'll give 5 arts. If you give 5 arts, that means till 5 arts from now, the object will be accessible. Immediately after 5 arts, the object will not be able to accessible by the third party persons. Now, currently, just to show you an example, I will select minutes here and I will give only 1 minute here. And you can also see the maximum and minimum minutes that you can give. So the minimum minute that you can give is 1 minute and the maximum minute is you can give 720 minutes. Similarly, arts also, the minimum arts you can give it as 1 and the maximum arts you can give it as 12. So currently, let me give 1 minute here and then click on create pre-signed URL. And here you can see an option called copy pre-signed URL. So just copy this one and share it to others. So currently I'm closing these tabs, share it to others. Assume that I'm sharing it to others. And if you click enter, I will be able to see this object only for 1 minute. After 1 minute, what will happen is automatically this object will not be able to accessible. It will show access denied. So let us wait till we see the access denied option. It will only come only up to 1 minute. So here you can see the access denied option is coming. Why? Because only up to 1 minute we have given the permission explicitly, and that's why for up to 1 minute of time anybody can access this object, provided only when you share the pre-signed URL, not the object URL. Okay, so that's how we can work with the S3 security features, especially with respect to the bucket policy, ACLs, and pre-signed URL. Along with that, we have also seen how to work with the default encryption, which is known as the SSE-S3. That is all from my end in this video. We'll meet in the next video with the advanced concept of S3, especially the KMS service. Thank you.